Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Um, my name is Erika. Today I'll be presenting on how to maintain your Endpoint DLP confidently. I'm a product manager working specifically on Endpoint DLP, and I own the space of the device onboarding page. So today I'll be reviewing how we can use the device onboarding page to make sure we not only deploy policies confidently, but you also monitor and maintain your endpoint DLP system. For today's agenda, I'll cover some specific needs, such as verifying policy deployment, identify devices missing latest policy updates, updating device configurations, collect device logs for support cases, and identify policies not updated to the latest version. At the end, we'll leave some time for a Q&A session. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to leave them on the chat. I'll address the questions at the end. And if I'm not able to answer some of your questions, I'll be sending a follow-up announcement with the deck, as well as a slide addressing the questions I wasn't able to answer. Addressing specific needs. What can you do if you want to verify a policy deployment? This can be very useful when you create or when you modify a policy and you want to confirm that that policy that you created has successfully reached your device. So how can you make sure that any policy was deployed? Well, when you're on your device onboarding page, what you do is you click on any of the devices that you wish to investigate, and it'll open a flyout page, as you can see here on the right blue box. Then you'll see 3 statuses, and I want to make a note that if you see updated with a green circle, it means that the device has been updated with the latest versions of your policies. If it's red and it says not updated, then it simply means that the device has not synced the latest policy updates. But if it's gray and it says not available, then it means that the device properties are not available because this device doesn't meet the required OS version. What does this mean? It means that your device needs to install the latest OS versions in order for us to retrieve the device details and show these to you. So this slide shows us better. So what can you do when it's not available? Well, the first step is you need to update to the minimum required version, which we are providing here. So in the red box, you'll see whenever one of your devices is not available, you'll see a red box at the top pop up. And what you need to do is first update the OS version following the links. So if you have a Windows device, you click on Windows and it'll take you to our public documentation showing you the steps on how to install the OS versions that we need in order for us to be able to show you the device status for your machines. Once you're able to update the OS version, then wait for these device details to appear. It might take a while to gather the device details, so just give it a couple of minutes and then you should be able to see the device status. Another way where you will be able to look at not available will be right here at the bottom where you can see the blue box. where we show the DLP policy sync details. So I want to emphasize this message that says, policy updates can take up to 2 hours to reflect on this dashboard. The device must be online for the update to happen. Check the device's last seen time before updating. Also, note that all policies sync across all devices, but will only be enforced for users assigned to them upon logging into those devices. So again, whenever you see not available, follow the steps that the red banner will show you. Another way that you can, or another approach that you can take in order to verify if a policy synced to your device is using the client analyzer tool. The majority of you should be familiar with this tool. So we are now providing in our in-product messaging another banner, as you can see here with the blue box. We're providing in-product guidance to show you how to leverage the client analyzer tool if you want to verify policy sync. So you can actually make use of the tool whenever you create a policy or when you're updating your policies and you don't want to wait 2 hours for those policies syncs to reflect on the dashboard. If you don't want to wait 2 hours, then you can go ahead, click on this link that we're providing here and follow the instructions to use the client analyzer tool and check for yourself whenever you want if a policy is currently on a given device. So this is an alternative that we're offering, and I just wanted to point it out in this presentation because I'm aware that whenever you create a policy or when you're modifying your policies, it might be frustrating that you need to wait up to 2 hours for those policy syncs to reflect on the dashboard. So if you don't want to wait 2 hours, make sure that you leverage the client analyzer tool and you follow the documentation link to see how to run the client analyzer and check if a policy is currently in your device. Now, why do we say check the last seen? Well, this is because your device must be online in order for policy updates to happen. So whenever one of your devices is offline, and when I say offline, I mean shut down. So let's say I finish working and I turn off my computer. So if my device is shut down, then it means it's offline, and it means it's not receiving any new policy updates or any new policies. So whenever you look at your Endpoint DLP setup and you want to look at the device status for all of your devices, make sure that if the policy sync status is not updated, then make sure you come to the device details and look at the last seen to ensure that the device has been online for a couple of hours. Because once it's online, then it'll start receiving the policy updates that it needs. But if it was offline the whole night and I just turned on my computer, then I won't be seeing any updated policy syncs for some time. So this is also another way to check if some of your devices are showing not updated, then make sure you check the last seen to ensure that the device has been online and it's ready to receive policy updates. Jumping onto the second scenario, identify devices missing the latest policy updates. So we covered if the policy sync status is showing not available, what should you do? We know that when it's not available, it means that you need to update the OS versions and make sure your policy is online and make sure you use the MDE client analyzer if you want to check immediately if a policy is in your device. Now, what should you do if your devices are showing not updated? Well, there's several steps you can take in order to see if the policy that you just created has been successfully deployed to your devices. The first thing is you can actually filter. You can utilize the filter in the device onboarding page in order to find the devices that have not received the latest policy updates. So by choosing not updated for policy sync status, you'll have a tailored list of every device that has not received an updated version of the policies. Now, I want to point out that there's a difference between not updated and not available. So whenever you see not available, the gray status that I showed at the beginning, when it says not available, it doesn't mean that your system isn't receiving policy updates, and it doesn't mean that the device doesn't have any DLP policies. It simply means that we're not able to retrieve any device details for the portal. Like we're not able to show you the device information, device status, such as configuration status or policy sync status. So in order for us to be able to retrieve those device details, we need you to install the latest OS version. But in this case, if we're showing you not updated, it means that we're able to retrieve the device details and your device has not received the latest version for the policies. How can we update device configurations? So if it says not updated for configuration status, then it means that your device needs to get updated or properly configured. So whenever the configuration status is not properly configured, you will notice that some of its settings or attributes, in this case, real-time protection or behavior monitoring, you'll notice that some of these attributes are disabled. In order for the configuration status to be updated, then you need to make sure that the settings are always enabled and that the configuration status is always updated showing green. Why? This is important because in order for your device to receive policy updates, it needs to be properly configured. So unless your device has an updated configuration status with all its settings enabled, then it will start receiving policy updates. But if your device is not properly configured, then it won't receive any policy updates. So in this case, through the device onboarding page, we're providing direct in-product documentation and guidance to show you how to enable these settings. So in this case, we can see that this device is not updated with regards to the configuration status. So as a user, what you do is you look at the specific attributes. Well, in this case, it seems like both real-time protection and behavior monitoring are disabled. What I should do here is click on View Documentation for the setting that is disabled. and it'll take me to our documentation guiding you on how to enable real-time protection. So by following the step-by-step instructions, then I can enable the real-time protection or behavior monitoring and ensure that the configuration comes back and updates to update it so that the device is properly configured and so that it starts receiving policies as intended. Another way that you can actually gather device logs in order to help during your support process is by collecting device logs whenever you submit a support case. So if you have a device and you have already configured the configuration settings, so as you can see, it says enabled, and you've already configured both RTP and BM. If you still see, or if you notice after waiting 2 hours for the portal to update, if you can still see that one of your policies for some reason hasn't reached your device, or if you're still seeing that the device is not updating the configuration status after enabling both attributes, then you can go to this first banner here that we're providing, where it says, need to collect device logs to help address support cases. Learn how to collect logs for Windows devices. And it'll show Mac devices if you're using a Mac. So if you've waited 2 hours for a policy change to reflect on the dashboard, or if you're seeing something that doesn't match what you think should be matching, then you can follow the link and collect the device logs for this machine and assist your support team when submitting a support case. This will allow you to have a smoother process, will also allow for a more efficient process with the support team, and will aid them in resolving your support issues. Now, jumping onto the next scenario, identify policies not updated to the latest version. So we talked about how to make sure that your DLP policy sync status is updated, how to make sure your configuration status is updated. Now, here's another way where you will see if the DLP policy sync status is not updated. Well, apart from showing red here at the top of the banner with not updated next to the DLP policy sync status, you'll see down towards the bottom that under the DLP policy sync details, we'll be showing you the exact DLP policies that are not updated. So if you click on view all policies on this device, you'll see that it'll open a flyout page showing you a list of every DLP policy as well as its corresponding status. So it'll always show you the not updated policies at the very top, so you don't have to sort the list, but you'll see that in this case, we have a couple of policies that have not updated, meaning that this device doesn't have the latest versions for these specific policies. Now, I want to emphasize, I mentioned it earlier, but this is a common confusion that I've noticed. So the way policy syncing or policy deployment works is that whenever you create a policy, it syncs, or whenever we have a policy sync, it syncs across all devices. So that's the reason why you might be seeing policies that are not scoped to this specific device showing up in this banner. However, you need to know that only policies enforced for users assigned to this device will be active, if that makes sense. So to clarify what I just said, whenever we deploy a policy sync, it goes across all devices. However, policies will only be enforced for users assigned to those policies upon logging into the device. So if you see a policy in this list that you know is not scoped to this device, it doesn't mean that it's being enforced. It means that it simply was deployed to all devices, but only policies that are enforced for users assigned to them will be active and working for the devices of the users upon logging into their corresponding device. Now, I wanna also share some resources so you stay up to date. I don't know if you can click from the presentation here, but if you're not able to click on the link or if you're not able to take a picture, I'll also share these 2 links at the end when I send out the slide deck. I wanted to leave enough time for us to go through a Q&A session because I'm aware that there might be some questions from the previous slides. So I want to go back and clarify some things. So I'll open the space now for the Q&A. We can look at the questions and start answering some. How much time do we have left?
Oh, we have plenty of time, Erika.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Yeah, let me check here. I'll start raising the questions here in order they came in, as and perhaps to some of them you may have already provided an answer. So, but let's just make sure that we're covering them. So,
yeah,
the first one goes: if a device is onboarded, so this is talking about a new device onboarded to Defender for Endpoint, do the DLP policies also flow down?
If a device has recently been onboarded, does it receive the DLP policies? That's a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So let me go back to the screen where I show you how it looks. So whenever you onboard a device, give it some time. I would say an hour for the device to send its device details to our server and for us to receive, the machine information in order to display the configuration status or the DLP policy sync status for you here in the portal. However, whenever you onboard a device, that device is getting the DLP policies. So even if we're not able to show you DLP policy sync status updated, it might say not available for the first hour or for the first 2 hours in the portal. It doesn't mean that the device, even though it's been recently onboarded, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have DLP coverage. So whenever you onboard a device, it should be receiving the DLP policies. The way it works, I don't know if we have anyone else in the call here to answer questions on the chat. But the way this works is that when you onboard a device, you the device receives the DLP policies whenever they sync the policies to all of the devices. So yes, you can confidently have for sure that whenever you onboard your device, it does apply the DLP policies, even though the portal here might not show it immediately.
Okay, great, thank you. And no, it's still just us three here in the call as far as anyone else goes. Okay, so the next one goes, this is about the DLP and what type of DLP are we talking about here? Is this network or host DLP versus agent or agentless DLP?
Well, that's the first time I've heard those terms. When I say DLP, and I don't know if this might be helpful or not, but I'm referring to Endpoint DLP from the device onboarding page perspective.
Okay, thank you. We'll move forward. For Windows Server that are onboarded, policy sync status is always not available. Why is this?
For recently onboarded Windows devices?
Windows servers that are onboarded, in this example, apparently shows that policy sync status it shows that it's always not available and is wondering why. Yeah.
So going back to the beginning, this might be helpful. Whenever it's not available, it doesn't mean that the device isn't receiving DLP protection. Those policies, those DLP policies are most likely in the device. However, this device is showing not available because we're not able to retrieve the device details for your machine. So in order for us to retrieve the device details and give you the status for your configuration status or for your DLP policy sync status, we need you to update your device with the minimum required OS version. So if you follow the link through here, in this case, Windows, if you go to your portal and you see that it says not available, follow this link and it'll take you to our public documentation guiding you on how to install the OS version that we require in order for us to be able to retrieve your device details and show you the status here in the device onboarding page. So I strongly recommend everyone who's currently seeing not available for most of their machines. Usually when it's showing not available for one machine, it'll show for all of your machines because it simply means that you don't have the OS version that we require. So I strongly recommend you go and you update to the OS version that we need so that you can leverage this amazing feature. You can go and use the device onboarding page not only to monitor your devices, but you can also look at the DLP policy sync status. You can see your configuration status. So whenever one of your devices isn't working, you can come here and you can see why it's not working. You can see if it's because one of your configuration attributes is disabled. You can see which one, and you can even follow the remediation guidance to enable it back and troubleshoot the device yourself instead of having to submit a support ticket. So I would say that's my main takeaway from this slide. Make sure you are updating to the OS version that we require in order for you to leverage this feature and be able to monitor in a very granular level the status of your devices.
Well, thank you so much for this detailed walkthrough. We have another question related to the onboarding, but slightly different. It goes like this. How can we target Endpoint DLP onboarding instead of every single endpoint automatically onboarding just because they are already onboarded to MDE? This is a huge problem for us. We need ability to target which endpoints to onboard to Endpoint DLP.
Can you repeat that question? It was a little long.
So this time I'll just read out the question itself as so. How can we target Endpoint DLP onboarding instead of every single endpoint automatically onboarding just because they are already onboarded to MDE?
Well, this is a great question. I think it's a complex question because it involves MDE, and the integration between both has always been a little confusing. I don't know if there's a way for you to target specifically which ones for Endpoint DLP you want to onboard, because it depends on what you want to do. It depends on which devices you want to onboard, even though they're already onboarded to MDE. So I will make a note of this question and see if we have a better response on, or just a way that can tell you how to target Endpoint DLP onboarding. And I will respond back for this question if we do have a way. But if not, I also wanna take this opportunity to say that if you have any specific asks or needs or feature requests that you would like to see in this experience, so in the device onboarding page, whenever you're onboarding your devices or whenever you are monitoring the status of your devices, if there's any specific asks, then feel free to please put them on the chat, and that way I can, take this list with me and brainstorm more ideas of how we can improve the experience.
Thank you, Erika. That's a great advice. Moving on to the next question, this seems to be more of a generic question and not perhaps DLP related. When will Microsoft allow us to collect logs remotely from the console instead of the analyzer? I don't know if you have an answer to that.
That's a great question. That's a question we've been receiving on multiple platforms. I've had conversations with my engineering team, and we've tried. So this is something we're aware about, its importance, and we wanna bring this generation of collecting logs, I would say almost immediately remotely. So it's not something we're able to provide at the moment, but it is there. Like, why can't we provide this right now? Well, the simple answer is it's more complicated than it sounds. So this is something I would like to provide and offer as the owner of this experience. I can give you my word that this is something I wish I could give you from the portal, but as of now, it's just not feasible on the technical side. So as an alternative, that's why we're providing, the in-product guidance to run the MDE client analyzer. But it is still on my notes, and it is still something I'll be pushing towards so that we keep on making progress to see if one day we can bring this to the experience and just have, the idea of clicking somewhere and collecting the logs. But I emphasize empathize with you. It's not there, but we want it to be there.
Thank you, Erika. Moving forward with the next question. Let's say we have MDE installed on phones, and this is BYOD, bring your own device, and an app was unsanctioned in MDA due to DLP concerns. Then how can we exclude those mobile devices so that they are not impacted?
I wonder if in this question, when it says an app was unsanctioned, what does that mean?
So we'll leave that. Hopefully the attendant is still here and will provide a follow-up question to this. We can move on to the next one.
Okay.
How can I prevent sensitive information from being uploaded to Microsoft sites such as Teams, Outlook, Portal from an external corporate account?
Well, this is a great question. Whenever you want to prevent sensitive information from leaving your, in this case, you said uploaded to Microsoft sites, then you can create policies and set the policy to detect when sensitive information is leaving one of your corporate accounts. So if one of your external corporate accounts, if you want to put that restriction, then you can create a policy to restrict the sensitive information from egressing. And then you'll not only be notified whenever someone attempts to do this, but it'll also block or put a stop to the user. So there's several actions you can take whenever you create a policy. You can either block the action of sending sensitive information. You can also give a warning to the user, but giving the user the opportunity to dismiss the warning. And you can also give just free access to the user. So if you go to policies under DLP, so if you go to data loss prevention and you click on policies, it'll guide you on how to create a policy where you can actually put this prevention or restriction for sensitive information leaving or being uploaded.
Thank you, Erika. We do have a follow-up, more details regarding the unsanctioned apps, which it means not a corporate validated one.
Oh, that's great. That's a great question. So when you have a device that doesn't have per se a valid user, then it should not be receiving any DLP protection. That's just the way it works. So if I remember correctly, the question was that if a device doesn't have, this user or
I can
this.
read it. I can read
Yes,
the question.
please.
So yeah, so let's say we have MD installed on phones and an app was unsanctioned in MDA due to DLP concerns, then how can we exclude those mobile devices so that they are not impacted?
But impacted from what? Is it impacted from receiving DLP policies? Is it impacted from?
Yeah,
I think that's
good question. Yeah. So we'll move forward and hopefully
and I
we'll have a
apologize.
follow.
I apologize to the person who's sending this question. I'll try to address it at the end.
Yeah, no problem. Though all valid question from your side as well, Erika. So moving forward, okay, so the screens you were sharing or the screens that you're sharing on your slides, are they compliance admin portal or are they on a device directly?
Yeah, these are on the compliance admin portal. This is on the Purview portal. If you go to settings on your compliance portal, if you go down to settings, then there's an option that says device onboarding. You click on device onboarding, and this is the view. These screenshots are all from there.
Okay, cool. Moving forward, could you explain the advanced classification, scanning, and protection in the Endpoint DLP settings?
Yes, of course. So advanced classification is an amazing feature that, in my strong opinion, you should all take advantage of this, because it does offer you specific, how do I say it? So it offers you specific features such as EDM, which is exact data match, that allows you for classification to happen in the cloud. So if you don't have advanced classification, then it means classification is happening locally. However, if you go to your settings and you turn on advanced classification, then you allow for our Microsoft Purview cloud-based data classification service to scan your items, to classify your items, and then it classifies them in the cloud, and then it returns them to your local machine. So if you take advantage of advanced classification, then you can take advantage of exact data match classification and named entities. So this is something, amazing. I learned more about this feature, and I really think, and I encourage everyone to turn this on, because with exact data match based classification, you can even create custom sensitive information types designed for any of your needs, and you can identify sensitive items so that you can prevent them from being inappropriately shared. So this is an approach you can take if you wanna, have a more customized sensitive information type based on keywords or confidence levels or patterns. So yeah, I just want to emphasize how good advanced classification is. And if you want to go to your Endpoint DLP settings, turn it on and experience it for yourself on that type of scanning and protection.
Okay. May we force sync policies from the device or portal, just like we have it on Intune portal?
That's a great question. No, we don't have the capability to force sync policies at the moment. Same as generating logs, it is something that's being discussed with our engineering team, but as of now, it's not something we're offering in the portal. What you can do if you want to check if one of your devices was synced is looking at the status or leveraging the client analyzer. But something we are bringing very soon is we're trying to make the policy sync time shorter. So we know we're not able to provide the force sync option, but we are trying to, address the issue and allow you to receive those policy syncs faster to your device.
Great, and I just shared the link here. Perhaps if the folks are more interested on what's upcoming features and roadmaps, they can join the private community. So the link is there for you to join. And Thanks for that, Erika. Moving forward to the next question here. How many total policies maximum we can configure?
Well, this is a great question. I don't know if there's a maximum. I don't want to say something that's incorrect, but I'll get back to this question, but I am almost sure we have no maximum. I'll double check and then I'll respond back to this question.
Okay, this next question is, I'm not sure what is it related to, but perhaps maybe you can help. It simply says, what if you use third-party EDR?
EDR, I guess they're referring to endpoint detection and response. But what if you use a third-party EDR for what? Again, what?
Yeah, that's, well.
Maybe they were asking a follow-up to something I said.
Could be. We'll check at the end and see if there's more clarification to that. The next one goes with Endpoint DLP. Can we check ports and communication protocols such as FTP and SMB without having to identify the application?
I'm not familiar with what is FTP and SMB, so this is also another question I will send to my team, and I'll get back to you, Ruben, with a response.
Okay, next one goes, is there any way to connect DLP with conditional access?
Connect DLP with conditional access. What does connect mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what Ariana has quoted. So we'll find out if they will provide more details. The next one is, what level of license is required for the Endpoint DLP?
That is a great question. I think it's a E5 license for Endpoint DLP.
Okay.
So our premium license.
If a device has a configuration status of updated, but a policy sync status of not available, is that normal if an Endpoint DLP policy is not assigned to a device yet? I think you elaborated on this already, but
let me think about the question.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. So if your device is showing the configuration status as updated, but the policy sync status not available, is it normal if an endpoint DLP policy is not assigned to the device yet? Yes, of course. So it doesn't mean that the endpoint DLP policy has not reached your device. It simply means that in this portal, so in the device onboarding portal, which is where you monitor the status of your devices and the policy sync status, in the portal, you see not available because the machine needs to be installed. It needs to be updated with the OS version that we require to show you the policy sync status. So if your configuration status is updated, it means from a configuration standpoint, everything is looking good. But since it says not available for the DLP policy sync status, it means you need to go and update that machine with the latest OS versions. Once you update the machine with the latest OS versions, then the DLP policy sync status will update and will show the corresponding status, either updated or not updated. If it's updated, it means we were able to check that every policy has the most up-to-date version. But if it's not updated, it means this machine or this device has not received the most updated version for your policies. If this is the case, my advice is just give it 2 hours after creating the policies or after deploying the policies. Give it 2 hours for the portal to show you the update on the policy sync status. And if it is still not showing up there, then go check your policy to make sure it's well configured, or submit a support ticket.
Thank you, Erika. We have 1 minute left, and I just want to be fair to the audience. We kind of started late this webinar, and we may be able to answer 1 or 2 questions, but we have quite a bit of them that were not answered. What I was going to say is, would you rather just take a look at and see what can be more beneficial for you to answer from the questions that we have left?
Yes. So, well, I think since we have just a couple of minutes, I just wanna, take the time to appreciate and thank everyone for making it to the webinar. And I will take it as an action item to look and review over every question, respond to the questions, and then I'll send you the deck and you can share it with everyone. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Yes. So just so everybody is aware, we may run late on publishing the deck because we would like to supply you with a slide that has all the answers to your questions. We will definitely share the recording of this webinar as soon as possible, by end of day today, more than likely. And so I would like to take this time to thank you, Erika, for being our guest and for sharing this great information with our public community. And to all listeners out there, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desires to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community, because I believe that together we can make a global impact. So please join us at aka.ms/security community. That's the site that will also have the information about our private communities if you scroll down below. And also you'll be able to be notified once you sign up about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. So also, please take a minute submitting your feedback about this webinar at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. It will follow under Microsoft Purview category or product area. For those of you who may have additional questions and are listening to this webinar as a recording at a later time, and you may raise your questions or your feedback at our Microsoft Tech Community Discussion Space area, which is at aka.ms/Microsoft Purview community. Thank you all for being a part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.